Good morning and welcome to Qdabra's weekly webinar. This is Patrick Halstead. I want to thank you for joining us. Today we're talking about haunting your forms to multiple sites. In fact, this webinar is so haunted that I forgot to put the title on my homepage for the webinar. Can you all hear me okay? Raise your hand if you can, and I will know to continue. Thank you very much, Dick. It's great to have you here. Chris, this is especially for you, as you know. So today, before we get started, I actually have some news, and I also have a quick poll, and we've got demos, of course, like always. So first of all, I want to talk about the security update from last week. Last week, Microsoft updated security for Internet Explorer. In fact, mine was updated on 10/12. That's almost 2 weeks ago, I guess. And anyway, there's a KB article. Depending on which version of Windows you have, it pretty much broke the InfoPath Designer and Filler. But it's not the end of the world. It's not what we call ghastly, given the theme today. Specifically, what broke was the rule inspector. If you've seen this, you know what I mean. If you go to Data Rule Inspector, you don't see anything. It's just a completely blank screen, like you can see down below in my screenshot. I've created the sample form and I just threw the screenshots in here. The other issue is the date picker, and if you're previewing your form and you have this issue, you'll notice that the filler does not have this date picker icon. It looks a little bit different, but it functions the same way. So it's not the end of the world. There's no effect on browser-based forms. But for those of you that want to fix it, the steps are pretty easy. You just remove the IE update. In fact, I've done that, and what will happen is once you remove it, you'll see that it's required still. It's like important. You haven't updated this. So that's the quick news on the Microsoft change from last week or the week before. And once I've removed it, you can see obviously on my screen it's working now. So if you've seen this issue, please, you've got a workaround. Obviously, it's not the end of the world. If you're using browser forms, you don't really care. I also want to do a shout out to SharePoint. Dale, I think, is it Dale, Jimmy? Is it
Patrick? I think we're only seeing the splash screen for your presentation.
Thanks, Jimmy.
A lot of people are raising their hands.
So here we go again. We have some news to talk about. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Sorry about that. Okay, so here is the sample form that shows this security, IE security issue. And like I said, it breaks the designer. You can't see the rule inspector. This is a simple form. I only have one rule on it. But if you have this issue, you're not going to see anything. The rule inspector will come up completely blank, as you see in this screenshot here. In addition, the date picker icon is broken, so that when you preview the form, your date picker will show up, and it will look like this little thing here at the bottom. I don't know if you can see this, but this little icon is what you'll see. To fix the issue, what you can do is you can just remove those two, whichever KB fits your machine. So if you've got a Windows 7, you'll remove KB 3185330. If you got Windows 10, you'll do the other one. And you can just go into Windows Update and remove these. If you're unfamiliar with how to do that, you just go into Windows Update, and you can see here that I have this one that I removed. And you can go into, let's see here, View Update History, and then you'll search for the KB that is specific to your scenario, and then you'll remove it. So you'll go to Installed Updates, and underneath the Windows updates, it takes a minute to load. You'll see the update that you want to remove. I'm guessing that Microsoft will fix this in the next month or so. Anyway, that's the issue. Sorry about the screen share issue. Okay, so a couple quick polls for you then, and then we'll do the main demo for today. So first of all, these polls are related to obviously the topic at hand. We are talking today about copying forms to subsites. We have a new technique for you, especially Chris Miller, who's on the call. And so we have this quick question for you. Do you have forms that you would like to do this on? And of course, about a quarter of you are saying yes, about a quarter of you are saying no, which begs the question. Actually, the yeses have it now. The yeses are at 60%, 10% of you say no, 27% are not sure, and some of you are here just for the Halloween tricks. So anyway, if you're not here for this syndication, this is what we're calling the, let's do one more poll here. So we've got one more poll, and that is, how do you do this today? Do you have forms that you copy to subsites? If you don't, just click on the first button. If you're using qRules to automatically dynamically do it, that's cool. We have customers doing that. And some of you may be using content types and UDCX files, which work. In fact, we've done webinars in the past, so it looks like about 80% of you don't do it today, and about 10% of you are using qRules, and about 10% of you are using the other ones. So thanks for playing the quick poll here. So a couple more pieces of news. We did ship DBXL 3.1 today. You can download it from our website. It's been a long time coming. We've been shipping DBXL about once every year for the last 6 or 7 years. If you go to qdabra.com, DBXL is our web service that connects your InfoPath forms to a SQL database. And you can see here what's new in 3.1. We've done a lot of work on it. We shipped it today. We've shipped 3.0 about a year ago, and about every year we ship it for the last 6 or 7 years. And you can get a free trial here. Obviously, we have a lot of customers on this call that have DBXL, and some of you have already upgraded to 3.1. If you want to get the latest bits, just let us know. You can download them, apply them. We have an installation guide, documentation. Just some quick news there on DBXL. We are looking to do another webinar in November on how to extract images from mobile forms. This also works with browser forms. And we'll be doing our training class in December. Finally. And it's free. So please come to our training if you have DBXL and you want to learn about the new stuff. FormsViewer 1.3, we're shooting for November 23rd. That's the day before Thanksgiving. And we'll do a webinar the week after that on the new features. Lots of new features coming with FormsViewer 1.3. Remember, FormsViewer is our replacement for InfoPath. And then the final piece of news is qRules. Some of you, most of you have qRules. qRules is finally being released this year, and Hillary's working hard on it, and she's hoping to have it done by December 5th. And we'll do a webinar after that showing you the tricks that you never knew existed along with the new stuff. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get on with the demo today. Let's get on with the topic at hand, and that is syndicating a form to multiple sites, what we call haunting your form to these different sites. So why would you want to do this? Well, obviously you want to save time. Why publish forms to multiple sites when you can do it just once? Also, you want to use those multiple sites because you want the content to live on those multiple sites. And of course, permissions. Okay, so previously we had techniques to use content types with UDCX files. It's kind of tricky. We did a webinar on this last July. In fact, Hillary recorded part of it. We have customers using this technique, so it's valid. Another technique that we actually talked about more than 3 years ago was to use qRules with dynamic data connections, and some of you are doing that. Neither of these techniques is a total panacea, right? They're both kind of partial. And then finally, in the past, we've had customers try to use this SharePoint syndication feature, which requires an admin deployed form and requires one of the above options. So it's very difficult because the form has to be admin deployed, and it doesn't always work like you would expect. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to show you a demo of a form. It's actually going to be one of the forms from last week. It's our expense report form. We love demoing that. And we're going to show you this form as a content type. In fact, I'm just going to do that right now. So we have on our site here, we have a site, our 365 site, with our expense report form on this. Now, what we've done here, this is going to be the parent site. So the parent site, or your site collection, whatever you want to call it, has a library, and what we've done is we've created this form library, and this is a form library that's just set up with content types. So if you go in to advanced settings, you'll see that we've enabled content types. That's critical. We're going to be using content types. We like content types. And we can see here we have one content type, which is this ER content type, which is for expense report. Okay? So once you've actually set it up, you'll come in here and you'll add from existing content types, and you'll select InfoPath Forms. You've done this before, right? You'll select InfoPath Forms, you'll select one of the content types, and you'll add it. Okay, we've already done that step. And then once we do that, we're getting these cite columns from the expense report form. Specifically, we're getting the employee, the purpose of the expense, and the total. Okay, so let's take a look at this library again. So I have 3 forms in here. And just to show you, before we do the demo of the cool way to copy forms to multiple subsites, we're going to simply show you what this form looks like first. So the form opens. Of course, we've got it configured to open in FormsViewer because FormsViewer now is faster than InfoPath. It's got more features, and we love it. But you could use this in InfoPath Form Services too. There are some reasons why FormsViewer is better for copying, and we'll go over those in a minute. But so here's my simple form. Like you saw last week, I can click on Previous. I can see those 3 expense reports that I've already filed. I can copy one of the existing ones. So that in itself is a pretty cool technique. Let's just say this is going to be our webinar party here. And for the party, we're going to get some Fran's chocolates. And what else do we want at the party? Of course, it's too early in the morning for anything alcoholic, so we're going to deal with chocolate and caffeine. How's that sound? And we'll spend $100 on the chocolate, and we'll spend $100 on the coffee. And we'll get to Zoka's coffee. Zoka's is one of our coffee roasters in Seattle here. For those of you who have been here, there's also Vivace, and there's all other kinds of, we're going to call this morale coffee. It's a boost, right? And we'll just make this $128. Okay, actually that's quite a bit of coffee. Okay, let's tone it down a bit here. Okay, $228. That's our expense report, and we've changed it to webinar parties. We're going to submit this form. Now the form submits to the same library it was opened from. Now this is critical, and we're going to show you how we did that in a second, because what you're going to see is when we syndicate this form to these subsites, we don't need to change the form's data connections. It's just automatically figures out that it's coming from the place where it's opened, and that's pretty cool. And it automatically submits back to that place. Okay, so there's the form. Okay, so that's great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to show you how we did this form. The form, before I do that, I'm going to have Jimmy show you how to copy to the subsites. Jimmy, are you ready?
Sam.
Okay, I'm making you presenter. Jimmy Risch is one of our is our FormsViewer developer lead here at Qdabra. He's been with us for about 8 years. He is also joining us from Kyoto, where he works and lives. And Jimmy, it's great to have you this morning.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little utility we've developed for setting up multiple lists to open up forms in FormsViewer. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new site here, new subsite, and we want to call this Sales Specters. Okay, create.
We have these 3 different department subsites, one for sales, one for operations, and one for finance, and we're sticking with our Halloween themes for the naming of the departments, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, yes indeed. All right, so now we've got our Sales Specters site. We are going to add a new form library here. So I'm looking for a form library. It's just going to be a simple empty form library. So I'm going to go in here. I want to call this expenses to match the name of the other libraries we have in our other sites. I'm going to create that.
And that's pretty key, right? They have to have the same name, right?
Yes, that's correct. And so I'm going to go through the same steps that Patrick showed you a moment ago. We're going to go into the library, look at the library settings, and we're going to enable content types. Add from existing content type. And I'm going to go with ER for expense report. Now this portion, the content type portion, is not strictly necessary in order to use this library with your form, but what adding the content type allows us to do is to have the promoted properties. So when somebody submits a document to this library, you get all the promoted properties in your library columns. Okay, so we now have our new library. It's all set up. Now, if I go to the library view and I click New, what's going to happen right now is that it's going to try to open up the form in InfoPath. And since I'm using a content type, it is indeed going to open up the expense report form that Patrick published some time ago. But that's not really what we want. So we're going to go back to the browser while that's trying to open up and go back to our parent site. And what I've done here is I've set up this utility called the update.js links utility. We have a download for this that you can go and get. You get it's an HTML file plus a PDF that explains how to install it on your site and use it.
We'll be making this available as part of the package today as well.
Yes, yes indeed. Okay, so what this does, and I assume some of you have been following our webinars about FormsViewer and have some idea of how it works. The way we integrate FormsViewer with a library is that you prepare a little JavaScript file and upload it to SharePoint. And then there's a little configuration step in your library where you tell the library to go get that JavaScript file, and that JavaScript file, when it's loaded in, it updates the library view to open new forms in FormsViewer and to open submitted XMLs in FormsViewer as well. So what this tool does is it will walk all the child sites of the site I specify here in the base site URL and look for libraries with a particular name. Here I'm going to go with expenses. And look for a view within that each of those libraries with a particular name. All items is the default view for any new library you've created. And it's going to update that setting, that JS link setting, to the value that I specify here. So what we've done in advance is prepare that JavaScript file and uploaded it to site assets.
It's
so
pretty easy to do that, right? It's like a couple-step process, right?
Yeah, it's very simple. Once you get used to it, it takes about 2 or 3 minutes. And okay, so what this is going to do when I hit run is it's going to walk all the child sites of this one specified here, and find any libraries named expenses, any views within those libraries named all items, and it's going to set them up to load in this JavaScript file when you view them. So here we go. Checking the current site, it updated because this one has an expenses library. Checked finance fiends, operations ogres, and sales specters, and you can see it updated a web part in each one of these. So we're all done. Now I will go back to my sales specters site, into the expenses, And now when I click New, opens up in FormsViewer.
And just to show that it's actually pulling data and submitting the same library, can you fill this one in with like a, let's just say, what's our business purpose today? Let's just say retreat. Let's say a Qdabra annual retreat, and let's put in your flight to Seattle.
All right.
And just to show people that it is in fact submitting to that library.
Okay.
Looks good.
Let's submit. And there we go. The form, as Patrick showed earlier, has that logic in it to automatically adjust itself to wherever it's being opened from, and here's this brand new library.
I'm going to show that logic in a second, but can you click New again, Jimmy, and show them that it's also doing the query from that library, just for total completeness here.
Yep. So we've got this button in the form that queries just the current library and finds any forms that are in there. And here it is. Now employee and purpose are not showing up for some reason, but it did indeed find the form. And then when I hit clone, it's going to load that XML in here, and there we go.
Okay, great. Now let's look at, obviously we've got a little bug there, we'll fix that, but let's take a look at how we did this. And I'm just going to go back to my screen here. And so what we showed, just to rehash, we prepared your site. You're going to be creating a subsite, and you're going to be running this tool on it called update.js links. We'll make that available in the package. And it's going to then update the child sites to point to that content type and open it in FormsViewer. The form itself has a couple of interesting commands in it. Let's take a look at those commands. So here's the form. Hopefully you can see this. We have a debug section at the bottom. You can just ignore that for a minute. But the form has a submit button, and the submit button is simply submitting to the data connection, submit. So what we've done is when we loaded the form, we have a bunch of rules that are running to set the form name, to get the current library, and so on. And these kinds of commands will be the same in all of the forms you have that are doing this, what we call a dynamic fix-up. So the form is actually sensing where it was opened from, and the way it does that is it gets the URL from where it was opened, and it looks at the source parameter in the URL, and it sets the library URL equal to that. And then what it does is it changes the submit URL, and that's really easy. That's just a qRules command here that changes the submit URL. You don't need qRules to run this in FormsViewer. If you have qRules, it'll work just fine as well. But the FormsViewer piece is nice because then you don't need to worry about Sandbox. You don't need to worry about a qRules license because FormsViewer supports qRules. These commands, change submit URL, for example, and getting the list, changing the connection URL, these will work just fine in FormsViewer. And in InfoPath if you've got qRules baked into it. Now here's the second command. We're actually doing a change connection URL. We're basically changing this up to the current location, and then we're finally changing the query. So there's actually 3 data connections to be concerned with here. One is the submit. Another one is query the existing ones. That's what happens when we click on list previous. When we click on the clone button, we're actually calling the get XML, right? And we're changing the command before we do that. So the URL is changing when we click on the button, but the other ones are changing when we open the form. So we've got that get XML, which is copying the XML into the form, and we've got then a final get list collection. We need to actually have a connection to our list web service on the SharePoint site so that we can fix up these queries. It's needed to get the list GUIDs, the IDs for those lists. So that's pretty much all there is to it. You can take this example. We've talked about these techniques before in that previous webinar, but I'll be packaging this up, and if you've got more questions, please type those in now. The benefits of this approach are obviously syndicating your form across these multiple subsites, which means less time for you, less hassle. You can use this as a development testing kind of methodology as well. I have a dev test site, just update the form once. Updating the form to FormsViewer is really as easy as, let me just show you quickly here. We'll call it Patrick's expense report. In fact, can we do this here? I'll just change the title of this, save my expense report form, and then if I go back to my, I'm going to call this form. I go back to my site, and I'm going to just drag and drop that form to my site and upload it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my, I might need to refresh here or something. You don't change the version of the form. I think I saved it, 8:32 a.m. That looks good. So let's try this one more time here. So click on FormsViewer and manage templates. And instead of publishing it, because we're using FormsViewer, we should be able to just drag and drop it up here. Okay, that's better. And then if we go back to the site, now this is the main site. Here, if I click on New, we should see the new form with my header as well. And then if we go to the subsite, let's go to our subsite. In fact, I'm just going to pick the one that Jimmy created, Sales Specters. Expenses. And here, if we click New, we should also see the correct form loaded. And there it is. And it's all working just fine. So basically, that's how easy it is to update your form, is you just drag and drop it. You don't have to publish it. And that's one of the benefits of using FormsViewer. Obviously, you don't need universal data connections. You don't have to hassle with them. It's just strict, stock data connections. There's no, we're dynamically fixing up the data connections on the fly. That is tricky, but you've got an example. We don't need to admin deploy the form. It's just drag and drop to FormsViewer. It's just a content type that's published to SharePoint. And that, because it's a content type, it's just one content type. We do get those promoted values correctly. Jimmy will have to look into why it's not pulling the values incorrectly, but it is showing up on those sites. In fact, if we go back to this site, we should see, and this is not showing the promoted properties, but let's go to the other one. We'll have to figure out why the form did not pull them in correctly, but let's see if the promoted properties were promoted as part of the default expenses library on the Finance Fiends site. It doesn't look like the columns are in there, but they're probably in the library. We just didn't promote them. We didn't show them. And if I click on library settings, we should see the content type columns, site columns down below. There they are. So we just forgot to promote them, but they are there. So you don't need to worry about the site column duplication issue because you've only got one site content type. You've only published it once. And we covered this drag and drop speed up for publishing. We also covered the fact that you don't need to worry about, well, we didn't talk about the SharePoint InfoPath support. So if SharePoint InfoPath breaks, you don't care because you're using FormsViewer. And of course, you don't need to worry about the sandbox in 365. You don't need to worry about qRules support because FormsViewer has qRules baked in for free, and FormsViewer is free. So those are the benefits. Thank you for your patience today. We are here to help you with those techniques. We've actually done these techniques for a couple of our customers already with FormsViewer, and we're happy to do them for you. It takes, doesn't take a lot of time to do this, to set it up. So if you have a form that you want to syndicate across sites, don't be shy. And here we've got questions now. In fact, I think we have one question from Dick, Jimmy, that, let's just see if we can pull this up here. We have one question at least, and that is, what does multiple sites mean? Subsites or site collections? So thanks for lodging that first question, Dick. And Jimmy, how would you respond to that? Does it work with site collections underneath the site, or just subsites, or both?
Basically what we mean when we say sites is subsites within a single site collection. I don't think that our utility would be able to crawl across site collections, but FormsViewer does work across site collections, so I believe it does. So if you set it up manually, you could potentially do that.
Second question, and Dick, if that, hopefully that answers your question there. Second question from Shane. Thanks, Shane, for being here. I think you're one of our customers that actually has this technique working. And thanks for the comment. FormsViewer is awesome. Yep, we're very happy to have you and everyone else here today. We'll get the package up. It's a very short 4-question survey, as you know and love, with the special sci-fi question at the end. Don't forget the survey. And thank you again for being here today. We look forward to presenting. We are scheduled to do, I think we're going to do a webinar next week, but I'm on vacation, so you'll have either Jimmy or Hillary next week and the week after, and we may try to tap one of our other resources here to do another webinar for you. But we appreciate you being here, and we look forward to doing a webinar, if not next week, the following week, and hope you have a great Halloween. Boo-hoo. Boo-hoo. See ya.